Obviously, the big news of the day is that Tim Walz has been nominated as the VP, or is now the presumptive nominee, I should say, for Kamala Harris. My view on it is it just highlights how radical Kamala Harris is. This is a person who listened to the Hamas wing of her own party and selecting a nominee. This is a guy who's proposed shipping more manufacturing jobs to China, who wants to make the American people more reliant on garbage energy instead of good American energy, and has proposed defunding the police just as Kamala Harris does. I think it's interesting, actually. They make an interesting tag team because, of course, Tim Walz allowed rioters to burn down Minneapolis in the summer of 2020, and then the few who got caught, Kamala Harris helped bail them out of jail.
So who is this guy? Who is Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor? Well, I'm going to go through that step by step, everything you need to know that the woke propagandist fake news media won't share with you. Okay, so who is Tim Walz? We really need to figure out who this person is. This, to me, is the most radical progressive ticket in the history of America. They've made a clear choice, and I'm going to share with you things that they don't want you to know. So here's a beautiful photo of Tim Walz with Ilhan Omar in Minnesota. That should say a lot right there. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. Well, I can think of probably 10,000 words that could go with this picture. Let me know what you think in the comments. So I posted this on X. By the way, follow me on X. I'm at Professor Nez. Make sure you follow me there. I do a lot of interaction, engagement, talk with you guys almost directly on X. So follow me on X at Professor Nez. Link in the description. So this is what Tim Walz has done. So he helped ignite the George Floyd riots, the worst the country had seen in decades, while Minneapolis burned. He stalled on deploying the National Guard for an entire day, blaming the city for not submitting the right paperwork. Can you believe that? He let his daughter leak the Guard's deployment plans online so that the rioters would know how long they had to loot the city with impunity. Minneapolis turned into a war zone because of Tim Walz. And then just days after the attempted murder of Donald Trump, he called him and his supporters fascists, egging on the same rhetoric that led to him being shot in the first place. He's overseen some of the most radical youth trans surgery laws in the country. Under his leadership, teenagers can get their breasts chopped off and get sterilized, and his government wants to call it, quote unquote, healthcare. He has the most radical abortion laws in the country. 0 limits. Every year, 5 to 6 babies are born alive and then taken out legally under laws that Tim Walz supports. On immigration, he's famously said he wanted to provide a ladder so invaders can come over Trump's wall. He and Kamala Harris want to let in. So what's happening in the UK, which I couldn't really show, I did a video on this. What's happening in the UK, which is essentially the largest invasion since, the Middle Ages, is we're seeing all these riots, all these radical, huge contingents of extremist terrorist Muslims who are literally attacking British citizens on the streets. And the prime minister and the authorities are going after the British citizens rather than the antagonizing extreme Muslims. This is the exact same ideology that Kamala and Walz engender. And they're going to do that to America if we're not careful. He oversaw the single worst fraud of the COVID era, the Feeding Our Future case. Thanks to his ineptitude and his Department of Education, criminals stole $250 million of taxpayer dollars on luxury cars, houses, and vacations, if you can believe that. Also during COVID, Tim Walz approved of a $500 million in hero pay for frontline workers, only to have 40% of that money go to people who are ineligible, or in many cases, literally deceased. In the House, he was Pelosi's sidekick and did whatever the Democrats demand. I mean, this guy literally was a Democratic shill. He did nothing. He didn't oppose anything. He just followed orders like an obedient chihuahua. He tries to disguise himself in his folksy Midwestern moderate. In reality, he is literally the white male version of Kamala Harris. Radical, inept, undeserving to be in leadership. Watch this.
A society that does not put equity and inclusion at the center of it, is certainly going to eventually come to the places where we're at. This is a moment of inflection. It's a moment of real change. It's a moment that those folks who are out there demanding this are not going to take a commission or a report. They're going to want fundamental change. And that is what I think that's one of the exciting things in the midst of all this. You can feel a sense of optimism coming back.
Yep, on top of everything else, Tim Walz supports diversity, inclusion, and equity. DEI, the worst cancerous idea that has ever inflicted itself upon humanity. DEI is literally discrimination. DEI is the antidote and a direct rebuke to a meritocracy, which is what our forefathers, or the Constitution, and the framers envisioned for our country and the values and principles embedded in the fabric of our country. Tim Walz back in 2019 said DEI are core values of one Minnesota, and we're excited to announce that the governor's office is hiring for the role of Chief Inclusion Officer. You want to talk about an absolute waste of taxpayer dollars? Like the bureaucracy that's happening in the swamp is not bad enough. This guy's going to hire a Chief Inclusion Officer, the most wasted and most egregious miscarriage of taxpayer dollars in the history of our government, in the history of our country. I look forward to working closely with our CIO to ensure every aspect of our work advances equity in Minnesota. Travesty. By the way, you want to know what he thinks about the red states? Check this out.
You know, you see those maps, red and blue, and there's all that red across there, and Democrats go into depression over it. It's mostly rocks and cows that are in that red area.
Right, so if you're not a deranged, radical, Marxist, Leninist, socialist, you're basically, just full of rocks and cows. That's what you are. That's what he thinks of the rest of America. Anybody who's outside his deranged DEI woke ideology is just, rocks and cows. That's all there is there. That's what he thinks of you, America. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. This is an actual email that was sent out by the governor of Minnesota, Tim Walz. Okay, he set up a tattletale hotline to allow neighbors to report each other for violating his tyrannical COVID orders in 2020. Thousands of reports from Minnesotans who snitched on their neighbors for things like playing basketball in a park, walking their dogs, and throwing small parties. Can you believe that, Nez Nation? This is the most dangerous ticket in the history of our country, which is why I keep saying over and over again, this is the most consequential election of our lives. Michelle Tafoya says, I've lived in Minnesota since 1994. It has gone from being one of the safest, prettiest places in the U.S. to, under Governor Tim Walz, one of the saddest. Police morale plummeted. More people have left than moved in. Walz is an excellent liar. He let our cities burn, has lost over $500 million taxpayer dollars in the last 4 years to scandal. Blame the spread of COVID on youth sports. I could go on. The country will clearly have a choice between leftism and freedom. What do you think of what Michelle just said there? Let me know in the comments. But wait, there's more. He also wants to give driver's licenses and make all illegals become citizens with zero screenings. Check this out.
It's done.
A packed room at the St. Paul Armory erupted after the governor's signature made driver's license for all the law of the land.
How about his judgment, his perception, his intelligence? Is he able to make decisions in the right manner? How perceptive is Tim Walz? Well, this is what he said about Joe Biden not that long ago.
I've spent a lot of time with the president, and he's great. We're talking, we're chatting, and all this. And I think, we all get a little older. That's what happens. But you also gain that insight. And I think when it comes to these issues, working across the aisle to get things done, you see the president just doing this with dignity, doing it with class, getting up every day, doing the work. So I think he's just doing what he does. And I think it's kind of incumbent upon all of us. Look, my mom's 88, still living on the farm, drives herself. Folks are able to do this. So I think this little bit of ageism that goes to this, if it's not that, would be something else. They attack all of us on something. This is part of it. I've spent a
So this is the guy who this is a guy who doesn't stand for anything, never, ever goes against the grain, no matter how absolutely lost in space it is, or left field, or anti-American, or woke, or propagandist, or just a downright lie to the American people. He will never, ever vote or talk against party lines. He is blue or nothing, no matter what. There's zero critical thinking with this guy. There's zero critical discernment. Of course, what did he say when Joe Biden stepped down finally? He said, oh, he did the great thing. It's for democracy. He did such a good thing. This is a weak, lion-ass dog, LAD to the max, zero gumption, zero spine, zero values, zero ethics, and he's anti-American on top of all. Trump just posted one phrase as soon as he found out that Kamala picked Tim Walz. He just said a resounding capital thank you on Truth Social. By the way, I'm on Truth Social too. Follow me there at Professor Nez. It's really alarming, and I think should raise everybody's red flags, is the real candidate who was qualified and who was actually going to be. He was the top front runner, top priority. The entire base, the consortium, the Obama Clintons loved him, was Josh Shapiro. The reason Josh Shapiro was not selected, which should absolutely raise so many alarm bells and ring them all over the land, is because he's Jewish. Kamala Harris did not pick Josh Shapiro because of his background. And this guy actually disavowed his heritage, his race, his ethnicity in the hopes of being the VP pick, and they bypassed him. Why? Because why do you think she picked Tim Walz? Tim Walz is in the most anti-American, super, ultra-Muslim community and state in the entire union. That should say everything. Who is she catering to? Is she catering to Americans? No, she doesn't want to lose the radical, socialist, Marxist, Muslim contingency, Ilhan Omar's contingency. She would rather cater to them than actual Americans. So she was in fear she would lose the Jewish vote. Bonkers. It's a clear-cut choice, America. I can't agree more with Michelle Tafoya. I mean, this is unbelievable. You couldn't have a more disparate, you couldn't have a more stark contrast between candidates. I've never seen anything like this. Let me know if you have. I mean, I've been around. I mean, I'm no young spring chicken. I've never seen. Literally, we have socialism and communism versus American freedom and capitalism. I mean, that's the decision. And now there's even talk she might even make Ilhan Omar and maybe even AOC part of the cabinet. Can you imagine Ilhan Omar, who supports Somalia over America, who supports Muslim ideologies, dangerous Muslim ideologies that attack Christians, attack Western values at every corner. Could you imagine her being Secretary of State, Secretary, Department of Defense? I mean, she shouldn't be working at a lemonade stand. I mean, there's nothing. This woman should stay far away from any bureaucracy, any government agency. But can you imagine? So, I mean, the decision is quite clear. This is who Tim Walz is. This is who Kamala picked. This is the ticket for the Democratic Party. You have anti-America, anti-freedom, woke, DEI, all the principles and values, communism, socialism, equity, distribution of wealth on one side. And on the other side, you have prosperity, a guy who doesn't start any wars, actually loves America, cares about Americans, does the right thing, is an amazing businessman, amazing negotiator. We had 4 years of economic prosperity, no wars. We had great gas prices. The economy was fantastic. Our border was secure, safety in our cities. He supports the police. He funds the police, not defund, funds the police. The choice is clear. I can't wait to hear from you. I want to throw this off to you. Let me know in the comments down below. What do you think? If I'm wrong, I'm happy to be wrong. Let me know in the comments. I love America. I want the best for America. I believe in a meritocracy. So if I'm wrong, prove it to me. Just do it respectfully or else you're out of here, because I don't deal with personal ad hominem attacks. As always, if you made it this far, subscribe. Sign up to our free newsletter. Become a Nez Nation Insider. It's your sure-proof way of never missing out on all the latest breaking that the corporate media machine won't share with you. That's in the pinned comment, show notes, and description. Sign up. It's free. Check out these videos right here coming up on the screen. Subscribe, follow, and as always, may God bless you and may God bless America. I'll see you soon.